Everywhere we go, people want to know who we are and where we come from. So who are you and where do you come from?
I'm Julie Haynes, also known as Twins and Me, and I'm from Cork City.
Julie, thank you so much for sitting down with me. And as I said to you just off the call there, that I had a rake of people say to me, you know, oh, you need to sit down with Julie. But talk to me. You have your Instagram handle and it's Twins and Me. How old are the twins?
So they are 4 this coming October. So they're just over 3.5 now.
And was it a shock or what? Tell me about that pregnancy and what that was like.
I'm still shocked. Nearly 4 years on, the shock will never leave me. It was a huge shock. So I was out in Australia, you see, living my best life, and I fell pregnant, and I was shocked. I was oh my God. I was like, oh God, I was absolutely shocked. And I got over the fact then that I was pregnant and I was accepting the pregnancy and I was moving forward, and I had to go for a scan out in Australia. And the lady said to me, she said, Julie, I'm going to have to do an internal on you. And I said, oh my God, is everything okay with the baby? And she said, I think there's 2. I said, well, girl, go up there because there's definitely not 2. We have to confirm this. And she did. And she went up and she said, no, Julie, 2. I said, oh, Christ. But no, I wouldn't have it no other way. But at the time, because I was out in Australia, I had none of my family were out there. In fairness, I had a great bunch of friends, but it was a big shock to the system, definitely.
And were you going to come home? Like, was that your plan? Were you going to come home? Did you tell them while you were out in Australia? Did you tell them there was twins while you were in Australia, or what happened? Tell me.
I was lucky, you see. So my mom and dad and my brother actually came out to me the Christmas. So I found out I was pregnant a week after Valentine's Day. And my mom, dad and my brother were after coming out to visit me in Australia at that Christmas. So they would have met him. So at least when I rang them to tell them I was pregnant, they knew who he was. They knew the dad. You know what I mean? So that was definitely softened the blow, thank God. When we rang his family, they never even met me. And here I was carrying their twins. So no, the plan was to stay out there and have the babies out there and stay out there for maybe 3 years with the twins and then come home to school them in Ireland. But when I was 6 months pregnant, then my mom rang me and she said, look, Julie, she says, we're after finding out that your dad has cancer. We don't know how bad it is at the moment. He was just going for tests and scans and everything else, but we can't keep it a secret from you. So I just wanted to get home then, because I knew at that stage, if I waited any longer and if I found out that my dad was if he only had a month to live, and I didn't want to be like a negative Nancy, but I really have to think of the future. I was like, well, but if I was 8 months pregnant and my dad was doctor, so my dad, you only have a month to live, and I'm stuck out in Australia heavily pregnant with twins, I don't know how I'd cope. So I was very lucky at an Irish GP out there. So I went to him and I sat down with him and I explained everything. So he set me up to the hospital straight away. I had a scan. The babies are quite high up, so they knew I wasn't going to go into labour any day. So they said, look, we'll write you a note, but you have to get on a flight and go straight home. And that's what I did. And it was the best decision I ever made. I'm so happy now looking back that I came home to be with my family.
And then how did you break that to him? Or did he come home with you or not?
No. So he had a really, really good job out in Australia at the time. He was really good job. So at the time, again, we didn't know how serious my dad's condition was. We didn't know how far the cancer had spread. We knew kind of nothing. We just knew he was going for a test. And look, we knew it wasn't looking great. But I said to him, he said, he was all for me coming home. He said, you're making the right decision. He did ask that I wanted him to come home with me. But at this time, as I said, we didn't know how bad my dad's cancer was. So I said, you stay in Australia. I'll go home for a couple of months and we'll see then what happens. And that's what we did.
And then you come home, and how long after? Jesus, 6 months on that plane by yourself. Was it very daunting?
Yeah. It wasn't too. I actually slept for most of it. I was exhausted from carrying the twins, and then with the heat as well out in Australia. And the plane was so big. I was in the middle row, so there was 4 chairs. So I had the whole 4 chairs to myself. So I made it into a little bed, and to be fair, I slept all the way. So it was actually fine. It was fine.
And then the greeting what is a greeting at the airport like after all that time of not seeing somebody? Now I know you'd only seen them at Christmas, but coming home to that, what was that like?
So that was the June then, you see. So I was like the June or the July. I came home and I actually flew into Dublin Airport, and my mom, my dad, and my brother were after driving us in car. It was brilliant. It was so lovely, and they had a sign saying "Welcome home, Julie," and the two peas and the two little peas or something they had. It was so lovely. But then it was heartbreaking knowing that I was coming home to the unknown and straight into all these hospital appointments, and being a support as well for my mom and my brother and my dad, and then having this big pregnancy as well.
And did you see a difference in your dad in the 6 months?
I actually did. Yeah, he was my dad was never a person to complain. He'd always just get on with it. But he was complaining now, getting into the car, and he was kind of achy and pain. It's small, not huge, but and it was horrible to see my dad like that because that wasn't him, So that was heartbreaking. So that was the start of it then.
And then you make all your appointments and change your appointments to Cork. And how does the rest of the pregnancy go?
Brilliant. I had a great pregnancy. I had a planned C-section then for when I was 38 weeks on the button. So I found out my dates, the date I would be going to be brought in for my C-section, and their dad actually came home then from Australia to be with me. So he flew home. I had the planned C-section. He stayed then for maybe a month, and then he went back out to Australia. And at the time I was renting a house by my mom and dad's house. My mom and dad, now I could have stayed with my mom and dad, but we live in the middle of the Cork City. My mom and dad's house is small, and my bedroom where I would have stayed with the twins is very, very small. I wouldn't have got two cots in there. So I rented a house, just myself and the twins. So that was hard. That was really, really hard being there on my own with two newborns. So then the relationship did struggle because he was out in Australia working, and we say if he had a day off, which he's quite entitled to, if he was texting me saying, "Oh, I'm just down watching Netflix," I was getting on with him. Then I'm like, "How dare you watch Netflix on your own? I'm peeing here with two babies on my, So we struggled. Our relationship did struggle.
And then tell me about the birth. Everything was good because they had physio for a very long time, didn't they? What was that for?
Yeah, so that was for... So Fionn was actually born 8 pounds. Well, 7.14 was going on 8 pounds.
Jesus, that's big for a twin.
Yeah, which is huge. And then Erin Rose was 6.5. So what I reckon happened to Fionn is, because there were such big babies, and then you have your placentas and everything else that's in there during pregnancy, Fionn didn't have much room to move. And so he was all kind of curled up. So when he was born, then he was born with a condition called hypotonia. So which means he had very, very low muscle tone. So when they were testing the babies, they lay Fionn down in the bed, and then they'd pick up, try to sit him up, but his head was very, very floppy. All his muscles are very, very floppy. And then me being a new mom, I was like, "But what did you expect? He's only a day old. Will he leave the child alone?" But sure, they knew best. They're like, "No, there's something up here." So he was brought down to Neo then for a while, and I was able to bring Erin home, which broke my heart, bringing one twin home and leaving one twin in the hospital. That was a very, very hard day as well. But in fairness, he was getting physio then from day one, and he's flying it now. Sure, he's 3.5 and he's playing rugby, and he's an upcoming rugby star. He's
set you up for life, and you don't have to do anything then. Jesus, imagine.
Yeah, that's the plan.
And then when did the Instagram page come about? When did you set that up? And when did the trolling start? And when did all that badness start? Or did you have a good few years of just people leaving you alone and following you? And then when did stuff happen?
Yeah, I was only chatting to one of the girls there recently about that. And when I first started my page, I suppose the twins were maybe 2 months old, 3 months old. And I just wanted to share real motherhood, I suppose. But at the time, myself and their dad, then after a couple of months, we did break up. And he said, so what happened was our plan was to go out to Australia. So because, as I said, our relationship was struggling. So he came home to help myself and the twins go out to Australia. Now we knew my dad was responding very well to treatment. So I knew he was going to be okay for another couple of years. So the plan was myself and himself to move out to Australia with the twins. So he came home, and he was only staying in Ireland for a week, and we were to fly back out on the Thursday, and on the Tuesday evening we got a phone call from our visa agent saying that there was something wrong with our visas not to come back out. Now at that stage, I was after giving back the house that I was after renting. I gave up their buggies. I gave away their car seats. I had absolutely nothing, because we were going to start from scratch out in Australia again with the twins. They're probably about 10, 11 months old at that stage. So again, our relationship then that was another blow. So we ended up breaking up. He got his own visa sorted. He went back out to Australia, and I was left, as I said, with absolutely nothing. Had to move back into my mum and dad's house. And as I said, my mum and dad lives in the middle of Cork City, so our bedrooms are tiny, so I couldn't get two cots in there. So I ended up in my mum and dad's sitting room. I was sleeping on the couch, and I had the twins in the sitting room as well, in their cot each. That was going on for about 8 months. So that's when really my Instagram took off. And a lot of people I never got trolled then, because first of all, I suppose I didn't have a big enough following. I probably only had about maybe 8,000, 10,000 following at that stage. But it's now that I'm actually after finding my feet, people now are coming after me. Do you know, that's the way I'm finding it at the moment. No, I'm still only in renting the house. By no means do I have my own house and a big huge car outside the door. I'm just a normal Joe Soap, but now I feel like, no, they're after me.
Isn't it mad that they just want you to stay down? People just want you to stay down.
Me to stay down, and as I said, it's not like I have a house, I'm renting it again. I have a normal little car outside the door. It's not like but it's just, I just feel now that I'm after finding my feet now, that they're after me now.
And Julie, can I ask you, just taking it back a bit, was he Irish, your partner?
Yeah.
He was Irish. And was he local? Was he a boyfriend here before you went out, or did you meet him out there?
No, I met him out in Australia. I met him in an Irish pub out in Australia.
And tell me this, you must have had, and again, this will only help people, you must have had really horrible, dark days in that time.
Well, you see, again, my dad was going through treatment, and with some treatment that he was going through, he couldn't be around pregnant women or children. He'd come back and he'd have to, so my dad would come back and he'd be just spent the whole day up in the hospital, and he'd have to go up to his bedroom and have his dinner up there or his cup of tea up there. So me and the twins then were able to stay in the sitting room on our own, downstairs. So it was very hard. I had a tent out my back garden where I would keep a lot of my, especially a lot of the kids' stuff, like their jumperoos, their swings. Yeah. That's where I would store stuff, in a tent out my mom and dad's back garden. My mom and dad's hall was my wardrobe. That's where my wardrobe was, with all my stuff and the kids' stuff. This was going on for 8 months. It was absolutely horrific. Couldn't get a house. Like everywhere in Ireland, I really struggled. I would go to viewings, and I'm not joking, the queue would be 2 miles long, and the person then in front of me, there could be a lovely couple in front of me, they have no children, they have 2 fine jobs, and then I'm up behind them with 2 kids hanging off me. I was only working part-time, there was only 1 income coming in, so I understood why the landlord didn't want me, but they wanted the couple in front of me with 2 really good jobs, but which was horrible though. But I just really, really, really struggled until I got this house. Then, in the end of the day, I had to go down. I had to declare myself homeless as well, with the kids in the buggy, and I couldn't get into the homeless office because my double buggy was so wide, and I found it hard to get into places with my double buggy. And I cried looking into my kids' face, I cannot believe my life. I went from living the dream out into Australia to go down to declare myself fucking homeless. It was horrible.
Isn't it a disgrace though? I can imagine though, when you were posting that stuff, people were going, I'm going through this, up and down the country.
And it was everywhere, and I'm still struggling. As I said, this is just a rental house. And at the back of my mind, I'm always like, what about if my landlord comes to me and says, look, I know he has children. My small fellow over there wants to move into the house. He's actually meeting a girlfriend, or himself and 3 of his friends there from college want to come into this house. It's always going to be at the back of your mind. And what I went through for those 8 months, I'm traumatized over it.
You're going through your dad's sickness, a breakup where it's not just a breakup, there's babies involved, and you're left to do all that, because I'm sure your mom was up to 90 as well, worried about you, worried about your dad, trying to make sure, because he's the love of our life. So, and you're our daughter and you're a grandbaby, so she was probably up the walls as well.
Oh, it took a toll on all of us, my dad, my mom, my brother, obviously myself, the kids, we did go through feckin' hell there it was just non-stop, I suppose, the last 3 years. It was horrible.
And then
absolutely horrible.
And how in that time, how did you survive? I know Sean is very good to you, but in that time, like, how did you survive mentally?
Oh, I just said, it's out there, swimmers, think here now, Julie, you either keep going and keep getting up every morning. And I always say that to people that ask me about housing and stuff like that. I'm like, just go to every fucking view and leave these letting agents or landlords know you, get them to know your face, that you're determined, and that's what I did. I went, like, there's some days there I could go to 6 or 7 house viewings a day. I kept going and going and going. Like, it's really easy. Like, I always say, like, I could have put the duvet over my head and felt very sorry for myself, but nobody's going to knock on my door. Then I'd be like, Julie, God love you, come on down there to Delgate the house. They're not going to do that. The only way I was going to is if I went there, knocked at the door and says, I'm here, I want this house,
Yeah.
So, like, it's just keep going and just keep getting up and keep fighting for what you think you deserve,
And we always like that.
I suppose a small bit, but more so since the kids came along, and like my mom and my brother and my dad were brilliant, but they were going through enough. My dad had hospital appointment after hospital appointment, and my poor dad, like he'd go into a doctor's appointment, and if he ever went on his own, he'd come out there and be like, well, what happened? I don't know what he was saying. But my dad would end up talking about fishing or something in there. So there would always have to be someone in with my dad,
Yeah.
Like, he'd come out and he'd be none the wiser. Like, but yeah, so they had enough going on. So I was like, I have to do this now for myself and the kids, of course. So I did. I finally got here then after a long time, like.
And then did that change everything for you? Like, I can understand living with parents, and especially in such a small environment, as you said, but then you're in your house, and I know your dad did your kitchen and did everything like that for you. So was that kind of life changing for you guys as a family? Did it bring you closer, even though you were so close living together, but did it actually bring you closer now that you had your little space?
Yeah, definitely. I'm a good probably 20 minutes drive now from my mom's house, which is grand, but like herself, my dad would nearly call to me every day, and I was working in Douglas. We spoke about Douglas earlier, two of us. I was working in Douglas at the time, so on my lunch break, instead of staying in the canteen there or whatever, I'd get into my car and I'd drive over to my dad's, and my dad would have a boiled egg ready for me every single day. I'm sure that's all he do to me. I would sit with my dad. I worked Monday to Friday. I would sit with my dad for that hour every day and then go back to work.
Tell me from the very beginning, what kind of dad was he?
Oh, he's so funny. Like nothing bothered him. Like, absolutely nothing. Like, if somebody now said something to him, I'm like, Dad, like, how do you feel about that? Fuck on. That was his attitude. That's all he used to say. But yeah, he was gas, absolutely up for anything. Just loved the crack, loved going out for his pint, loved fishing, just very, very easygoing.
My dad is a fisherman as well, and they are very easygoing. They just want to get out there with their rod and do a bit of fishing. That's all they want, isn't it? Just a bit of peace and quiet.
That's all he lived for. And a cigarette. Yeah, I loved a cigarette. And like my dad could like move this bottle of water from here to there, and he'd be like, sit down now for a cigarette. He'd reward himself with a cigarette, or he'd take a sip of his tea and he'd be like, I'll have a cigarette now. Every little thing you do, it was a cigarette then was this little reward.
And did you smoke? Did you smoke growing up around it, or your Shani?
I did actually. I smoked there, and I was smoking it in Australia, but with the heat, I thought I couldn't do it, and so I actually gave up it in Australia before I fell pregnant. But I used to. Yeah, we all smoked. My dad would have killed. He probably would have killed you when he found out that you smoked. Did he? No, because he was robbing them off me. At that stage, then I suppose the 10s were gone. Remember, we'd be able to get like a 10 John Player Blue, went up to 20s, and he couldn't cope then with that, so he'd probably be robbing them off me. And then again, I'm just going to bring us up a little bit back to the Instagram page. So yeah, as I said, and I think I've had this conversation about single mothers before, and they get this bad reputation. And I was actually on the Elaine show. Elaine's from Cork herself, and she said something that was really profound to me. She said, if that was a man at the school gates with twins, and the woman had left, could you imagine all the women? Oh, God help him! Here's meals. Here's this. Here's that. He's a hero. But nobody says that about the man leaving, and it's always the woman's fault. Yeah, and I got a message there last week, I think it was, and it was like, go away and get a full-time job for yourself. And I'm like, and who's going to mind my kids? Like, my kids now are off, obviously, for the summer holidays, but when they go back now in September, they'll be doing 9 to 12. If I applied for Super Value down Carrick Lane there, imagine me saying to the manager, I can only start now at about 9:15 by the time I drop the kids. And I'd have to leave then at 11:30. I have nobody to watch my kids. The only two people that my kids would go to is my mom and my brother, and they both work, you know, and I'm a stay-at-home mom, you know. I was working for a while, but now I find it too hard with them.
And it's, you know, like my mother-in-law minds my kids for me when I work, but I'd be very strict with my time with her, and then you feel guilty even ask her, look, me and him are going to go out for a coffee, or we're going to go out for a drink, will you mind the kids? And you don't want to ask because they're to be looking after the kids all the day, you know what I mean? It's very hard.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what I am as well. So we say if I want to get even something so stupid like an eyebrow wax, I'd have to ask my mom. Then if I was in work that morning, I'd have to ask my mom, like, no, to mind my kids whilst I was at work. Then if I want to meet one of the girls on a Saturday night, ask my mom. I honest to God, now I've a great bunch of friends and extended family, but with COVID and everything, sure, my kids didn't see them, you know, so it's very hard. So at the moment, and for the last couple of months, all I had was my mum and my brother, you know, and people then text me, go away and get a job. I'm like, will you mind my kids? Do you know? And if I did get a child minder to the house, I might like, I'm giving her all my wages, you know. It's very, very hard, like.
And then at what stage you said that then people were, you know, they do love to see people down. They do love to see someone struggle. Yeah. If someone comes on with a sad story, all of a sudden the followers just jump because there's a situation that people don't like seeing people do well.
Yeah, and like that now again when I was going through that, when I was living on my mom and dad's couch and stuff, those couple of months that's where I see my following grow. But I didn't have a huge amount of following at the time, and now though, but obviously my dad passed away then in February, and at that stage I had probably about 60,000 followers, something like that. I can't even remember, but something about that. And the trolls, so because my dad died in February and we were in the height of a big lockdown then, you know, the way when somebody passed away, there was about, is it 8 at the funeral? I can't even remember, it was 8 or 10 or something like that. But on RIP, then they left a link, and like we say, if you wanted to watch my dad's funeral and just pay your own little respects, you just click on the link and then you can watch my dad's funeral from home or whatever. Like my trolls actually watched the whole funeral and commentated every little thing I done. And most of it was all bull. I can't remember my dad's funeral, and to be honest, I don't even want to remember it. I think if I sat down and thought back, I probably would be able to remember, but I don't want to because it was just the worst day of my life. But like, I remember I was about 2 weeks after I buried my dad, I was starting to get screenshots of this page and these pages where trolls would meet and they'd be chatting away on online forums, and they literally commented every move I made, and they were saying crap now, like I was drunk, I was walking around the altar. Like if I did that, my mom would kick me out of the church. I put my 3-year-old son on top of the coffin. I was one that killed my dad because I was going shopping in Dunn stores, and then I'd go and visit my dad, you know, just stuff like that. Like it was horrible. Just after burying my dad to read stuff like that, it was really kicking the teeth now as well, to be fair.
And who are these people you like? Who in their right fucking mind would sit and say something like that?
Lunatics, absolutely. And like, they don't go as Julie Haynes or Mary Murphy or whatever. They hide behind fake pages, like just stupid names, like, and to write stuff like that she was drunk at her dad's funeral, and something like, I had a handbag when I went into the church. I put the handbag under the chair, and when I got up to walk behind my dad, I obviously forgot my handbag, and I think my cousin ran to get my handbag, and you know, she was holding my handbag but kind of holding me up as well, supporting me. Look at her, she's drunk, she can't even walk. But it wasn't that I was drunk, I was upset, and you know, you're kind of crouched. I don't know. Yeah. I just thought it was absolute. They're just weird. They're lunatics. They're unhinged. That's what they are, unhinged.
And tell me, you at one point you did call out someone, or did you find someone else's troll? Tell me about that.
No, yes, that was so a couple of months ago. What happened there? Oh, the first one we caught. I to be fair now, I'm not going to take credit for it because I didn't catch her. Was somebody else there in Cork messaged me and said, I don't look at these farms because to be honest, they bore me because all I'm reading is bullshit. Like, but she was keeping a good eye on it, and this particular troll was left a couple of things slip, like about her own parents passed away, and she left the date that they passed away and where she was from in Cork and about her children, and left names and where she worked. So this woman that came to me put the pieces together and we figured out who it was, and it was actually a girl that lives very, very close to me here. So I wrote to her, but I said something now smart. I said like in a nice way now, like her troll name was am I allowed to say her
yes,
troll name?
Go on. Yeah.
So her troll name was Almost There. So I wrote her anyway. She was after messaging me a couple of weeks back, but I didn't see it. So I wrote back to that message and I was like, so sorry, hon. Was almost there texting you back, and I got almost there in to leave, I have you heard, no?
Yeah.
And she blocked me straight away, and I was like, no, I have her. So I went back then on what she used to say about me, and I read like that she said that one of the days I had up that Fiona's blown a whistle, and it was 6 o'clock in the morning in the middle of lockdown, and I was like, oh my God. And she wrote up then after viewing Fiona had blown a whistle, I'd love to ram the fucking whistle down his throat. Now my child was only 2 at that stage. Could you imagine writing that about a 2-year-old? Like this one now was vicious what she used to be writing. And then she also wrote where she worked and who she worked for, and I rang the company and I said, you have so and so working here? And she says, yeah. And I said, look, can I have your email address? I was speaking to the manager and she said, yeah. And I sent her on all the screenshots, and the manager was vicious. She was so upset that an employee of hers was acting like this. So that was the Monday, but my dad passed away then on the Thursday. So there wasn't much more done of that then, just because it was just a rotten week, as you can imagine. So I kind of left that late, but I know she came off, this particular troll came off all social medias, and she's just keeping her head down there now, as far as I know.
But like even that, I'd love to, that's pure violence.
A 2-year-old, like, say what you want about me, but could you imagine saying that about a 2-year-old blown a... Now it was grand for me because I'm the mother. I have to listen to the 6 o'clock, like me, be like, oh God, here we go with this. I was saying actually on my story, I'm gonna have to hide that whistle later. Do you know, have to crap. And you're one then writing up on these farms, I'd love to ram a whistle down his throat. That's what she wrote.
Jesus Christ. And these people have kids, and I remember James Patrice in James's podcast, he said the same. He said, look, come after me all you want because I'm putting myself out there, but don't come after mum and dad or his sister Vanessa. Don't come after them. And I just think people, if you can't say it to your face, don't fucking say it.
Yeah, and that's it, like. But sure, I caught another one there a couple of weeks, when was it? About 3 weeks ago. Again, now she just kept leaving things drop, and I put the pieces together and I figured out who it was. So I messaged her on Instagram and I was like, hi hon, I hear you have a few things you want to get off your chest. Send me on your number there and I'll give you a ring. She blocked me. So I did a bit of more investigating anyway, and I found out where she worked. So I went on to their Facebook page anyway, and it was like, it wasn't beauticians or hairdressers, but it'd be like that now, all right? And it was like, if you want to get in contact with Mary, we'll call her, give her a call on 087 blah, blah, blah. So I had her phone number, so I gave her a ring, and she knew it was me, so she hung up anyway straight away, and she blocked me from ringing her. So then, as I said, I knew where she worked, so she had her own work email. So I emailed her there, and I was like, "Hon, I know you've blocked. Like you're blocked. You were just have to block me from Instagram. You blocked me from ringing you. Like I know it's hacking you. Like just own up to it." So emailed her anyway. And then I sent her my number, and I was like, look, say it to my fucking face, do you know? So with that, I heard nothing back. So I rang the work company. I rang her work phone, and again, or like the landline, we call it. She hung up on me. So then after a while, anyway, a couple of hours anyway, she rang me back. She rang me and she was like, she was bawling, crying on the phone and tried to give me a bit of a sob story. She goes, girl, I don't want to hear your sob story at all. I was like, we all have our sob stories. I was like, but what you're writing there about me is absolutely fucking vicious. Like, where did you get this information? Like, you're right, X, Y, and Z. Do you know that for a fact? And she says, no, I just assumed it. I was like, girl, you can't just assume things and put it all over the internet, because that's fucking wrong, like. What planet are you fucking living in?
Yeah.
They're just, like, I assumed it, so I wrote it about you. Like, that's not good enough, like, you know. And then crying and saying this, and I'm like, girl, I was like, enough now with your crocodile tears, because this is fucking wrong. Like, now, at the end of the day, she did apologize. I did get an apology, and she apologized to my mom as well and my brother, because she was writing vicious stuff about all of us, and just wrong. She was just wrong what she was writing, you know.
And Julie, the thing is about it, some people would actually. You're very strong, because some people would absolutely get into a hole, as I said, put a duvet over their head, or take their own life.
And you know, we see that every single day. Jeez, down here in Cork, like, I hear children doing, I can't fucking cope, like, and I'm like, I just want Aaron Rose and Fionn to say, like, you stand up to these fuckers, like, and if they're wrong, you go right up to their face and be like, here, like, what's wrong with you? Like, I didn't, you know, stand up for yourself as well. But I know it's easier said than done, because my brother spoke on my Instagram of his own anxiety and stuff, and I couldn't imagine if he had to go through what I'm going through now with trolls. I don't know what he'd take it as well, you know, because he, as I said, he suffers with his anxiety, and he spoke about that publicly on my Instagram. But it's awful. I do worry for. And there will be another Caroline Flack in Ireland because of the trolls.
Yeah.
And they'll have blood on their hands.
And they'll be the first person to, oh God help her and all, she must have been blah, blah, blah. And they're the ones that cause it.
Be kind. It's awful. Like, oh, they're just, they're unhinged. Absolutely unhinged. Like. And
then tell me then about your dad. Did the first initial cancer stage then, did he get clear and did it come back, or how did it work?
No, so it was like we found out it was stage 4 from day dot, really. But he went on, he was on tablets first for the first maybe 2 years, and they worked a dream, because it was just one tablet. You just have to pop one tablet every day, and they worked a dream. Like, he wasn't sick, he was nothing, he no side effects, thank God. And I do think as well, the twins kept him alive for that bit longer. They kind of gave him a new lease of life. So he was flying for 2 years, and then they stopped working, because I suppose his body got immune to it. And then he went on, I think it was radium. But then we were in COVID, then when he switched over to radium, so I'd have to drop him up, or my mom would drop him up every couple of weeks to get his radium done. And like, he took it like a trooper, as I said, never complained. Would go in there with his paper and his hard sweets and stay in there for a couple of hours. We'd pick him up again, and not a bother to him.
So he was on the radium, and then that was, but again, in COVID, like, when he was doing that, like, you know, did he just take, as you said, he just took it in his absolute stride, because he probably knew that he had to be there for you, for the twinnies, for everything, really.
Yeah, in fairness, like, he was just like, I dropped him up and I'd be smiling and we'd have the crack going up along, but then as soon as he'd walk in the doors, I'd be crying. And like, it was awful, like, because the twins were off school because of COVID and stuff, so I'd have them in the car, and I'd be trying to dry up the tears so they wouldn't see me upset, you know. But that was really, really hard. But as I said, he took it in his stride, thank God, and he wasn't sick, which we were, like, as in, you know, really bad side effects, which we were blessed by. And right up to the end, and we had a great Christmas. And then just after Christmas, then I could see, though, at Christmas time, we spent Christmas in my house, I could see he was going up to bed a lot, you know, having a rest and stuff. And that wasn't my dad at all. If he wanted to have a little nap, he'd nap away there on the couch, you know, for 20 minutes. But like, he wanted to go up to bed and close the door and have a full on deep sleep, you know. So I could see him going downhill at Christmas. And then come January, then it was bad. It got bad then.
And did you, like, Shawnee and your mum, did you have a conversation and say, are you noticing Dad's getting a little bit tired looking, or did you just all keep that in? And was there just
you know, block it out, you pretend it's not going on, kind of. In fairness, Sean and my mom, actually, Sean more so than any of us, he was brilliant. He knew what was happening. I kept saying, I kept saying it was a urine infection. Don't ask me why, but I had in my brain, I'll pretend now it's a urine infection. Even up till we have a hospice down here called Marymount. I don't know if you've ever heard of Marymount. So it's a place where you'd go, like, if there's part of it where you go if you're going to die or whatever. But because of COVID, we were lucky that they actually came out to the house. And, you know, once they start coming out of the house, and it's not looking good. And I remember even saying to the doctors of Merriman, being like, it's just a urine infection. You know, if I got a urine infection, I'd be sick as well. But sure, my dad is on all this treatment to me as cancer, so of course he's going to be sicker. You know, I was making it up. Like, I was really blocking what was going on. You know, and even like when people even on my Instagram found out that my dad had passed away, they're like, Julie, we had no idea he was so sick, because I was coming on up till probably a day before he passed away talking normal, because in my mind this wasn't happening. You know, that it might sound stupid, but I was just pretending. I was just making up an excuse, really. Just, I don't know what I was doing.
You just didn't want to deal with it.
I didn't want to deal with it, so I just pretended in my own little head. Like, my mind was protecting me, really. I was just saying to myself, it was a urine infection and all was going to be okay.
Because it was a shock when you put it up that he passed, because usually when people are sick, or, you know, people who have their own Instagrams are sick, like it's a documentation of, well, he's gone in now and, you know, he's getting this done, or we're getting this done, or we're in the middle of this. So it was a huge shock when you put that photo up, and it was like, whoa.
Yeah, because as I said, Christmas time, like all the videos and pictures I was putting up, he looked fine, you know. And then kind of January, I put up the odd picture because he would come downstairs kind of in January for a while, like just watch the rugby, you know, if rugby was on our match or whatever. And then he might go back up to bed. But I'd get a picture of me and my dad, so to everybody watching, he looked fine, you know. And then Jerry passed away then in February, 18th February, and people were like, oh my God, like nobody knew he was so sick.
Julie, what happened to him? Tell me if you can.
So after Christmas, is that?
Yeah.
So obviously the cancer and stuff, and then the radium stopped working. So there was nothing else they could do. And they just said, look, just take every day now as it comes. That was probably this time last year, actually. And he was doing well up to Christmas. And then he started going downhill. He wasn't eating. He wasn't eating a whole lot. Again, as I said, he was sleeping a lot. And that was kind of January. And then probably the end of January, then he just went into sleep and was talking like, was still kind of was talking, but wasn't really making sense. But was talking about like if we were, you know what he was talking about now? He was talking about when I was had nowhere to go, and he was like, "You make sure now you get sorted." That was his only. He was back then. You know, he put his life back to maybe 3 years ago. He's like, "You make sure now you get sorted, and everything will be okay now. You know, we'll go looking at that house now again." And my dad was in bed. You know, there was Merriman doctors around him, and that's what my dad was talking about. You know, tomorrow now we'll go looking at that house for you. I was like, yeah, Dad, we will. He was talking a bit silly, but I suppose that was the drugs as well he was on. So that was very hard to watch. And then he became very frail. And then he was put into, you know, that bed, what's it called? Like, that special bed. And to be honest, I couldn't do it. I couldn't go up the stairs because he was at home, thank God. But I would call out to my mum and dad. And again, we were in COVID, so I had nobody to watch the twins. I'd have to bring them with me, but I'd leave them play out the back. And my mum would say, go on up to your dad there now. I can't, Mum. I didn't like seeing it. So I felt bad then about that. So I would make myself go up, but like I would stand outside the bedroom and I'd have to work myself up to go in there, you know. And then once I'm in, I'm not too bad. I would sit there and he was in asleep and I would I chat away to him. Or there's one day there was a rugby match on and I put that on my phone and we were listening to the rugby match together. But like he was just sleeping. So yeah, that was very hard. And then I'd have to come downstairs and get the twins ready and put them into the car. And I'd be singing nursery rhymes from my mum's house all those back here as if everything was fine, you know, but really deep down I was broken. But it was a very hard couple of weeks. And then I come home and I'd have to sort the twins' dinner or whatever. And that was okay because I was busy. But then at night times, once I'd put them to sleep or to put them to bed and I was here on my own in the evenings, because again, I couldn't have anybody calling to me because of COVID. I couldn't go anywhere. So I slept in all right.
And is that when you would probably go on to Instagram or go on and use that as an outlet for yourself? Yeah,
I'd come on, I'd dry the tears, I'd come on as if nothing. Like, I just put the kids to bed and it's recommended for the last hour. But a normal talk, I would never say I was just with my dad there. Like, you know, we listened to a rugby match, but he didn't open his eyes once, he didn't say one thing, you know, and he was just laying there in the bed. I never spoke about that. And that went on for maybe about 2 months maybe. But it was great that I had my Instagram, because as I said, it was COVID, none of my friends could call. But so that was my little outlet, you know, that was kind of my switch off, because I was here on my own.
And then that's for someone to be talking about you in the background, and they don't know they don't know nothing. They don't know nothing about your life.
Yeah, nothing. And like, obviously people knew my dad was sick, but they didn't know he was dying at the time. And I get messages saying like, oh, you're down in, like, I'd come on my Instagram, like, oh, just down doing the shop there. And then maybe 2 hours later, I could be over visiting my dad. And like, obviously deep down, I'm bawling, crying. I'm inside my dad's bedroom, like try to work myself up to go and see my dying dad. And then I could just get a message being like, you were in fucking Duns there 2 hours ago. Now you're with your dad, who we all know is, you know, was sick and all. Like, they didn't know he was dying in the bed. Like, but he had stage 4 cancer. Like, and I'm like, you've no idea what I'm just about to walk into. And then to read a fucking message like that, like, it's horrible.
Cruel, absolutely cruel. And Julie, then can you tell me, if you can, about the day that your dad passed?
My dad's brother came to visit my dad on the Tuesday, I think it was, and we said, look, we leave the two of them have their own, like, we leave my dad's brother chat away to him. And my dad's brother said, oh, I don't think he's not breathing really well. And Sean went into it. God love Sean, he was brilliant, he was at home. So Sean went in, and his breathing did change a small bit. So we called our GP, and the GP came out and just gave him a tablet or something out like that. And he sounded okay. Then again, he was asleep. So my brother said to the GP, is it looking bad? Do you think it'll be tonight? But our GP said, no, I'd say there's another couple of days in him, you know, because he still had a bit of weight. Like, so we were obviously delighted to hear that. And a few of my friends had lost parents in the past, and I said to them, they've all been with their parents when they passed away, like that, they passed away from cancer and other illnesses. And I said to them, I don't think I want to be with my dad. And I know that probably sounds absolutely horrible to some listeners. I was like, I don't know how I'm going to react to watching somebody take their last breath, and I don't want that to be my memory, you know? And I kept saying, and I was like, I felt so bad. I kept saying, I don't want to be there. I just want to remember my dad. It's the good days. So they were like, oh, Julie, like, you do you, whatever you think. But they were saying, like, when the doctors call you saying, this is it now. Like, they were all saying, you will probably go in, but like, just be there and hold his hand and be there for your mom. But I kept saying, and then I said it to a few of my friends, and my dad went without me. But I think he heard me, you know.
He did.
I truly believe he heard me saying that I didn't want to be there, but now push came to shove, and if I was in the house, I would have went in. But deep down, I knew I didn't want to be there. Mm-hmm. So I reckon he definitely heard me. He knew I didn't want to be there, because he knew I was soft. I thought I just don't like backing his stuff. So I wasn't there. I was at home, and I got a phone call. And I knew as soon as my phone started ringing, because it was very early in the morning, and I was here on my own with the kids. I had to get them up. I had to get them dressed. I knew my dad was gone, like, and got them up, got them dressed. And at that stage, schools were after reopening, but only to like healthcare workers, kids and stuff. So the teacher or the owners of the school, I'm blessed with them. So they actually rang, I don't know, Tussler, whoever, and they said, look, we have this single parent here, she's on her own, her dad isn't well, can these kids come back into the school, that she needs support? And in fairness, they're like, yeah, she was what was the word, I don't know what they'd call me, like priority, I suppose. Yeah. I was there to my kids in. So I dropped them in there, and I went home, and I said to my mom, the first thing I said, I was like, he knew I didn't want to be there. Mm-hmm. And my mom was like, do you know what, Julie, you're probably right. He knows that you wouldn't have been able to take it, and that would have been my memory going forward, you know.
He was protecting you till the very end, Julie.
I think so. And you find a great comfort in that. But I really, and I feel awful even saying it, but I want to be honest, because I know there might be other people out there that don't want to go in, you know, if they knew a parent or somebody they loved was dying, because I was like, how do you say goodbye? Like, you know, I did it in my own way, like listening to the rugby match, which my dad loved. You know, we had a bit of crack that, like, I was listening to it, I was like, oh, Dad, Jesus, he's never got to try, even though he wasn't speaking back. But, you know, I did it in my own kind of way, but I wasn't there like that. No, we didn't know he was going to go that night. The GP said he seemed to be fine, but if the GP said otherwise, I would have been there and I would have went in, but I would have fucking hated that. Like,
and then he wouldn't have wanted that for you either. He wouldn't have wanted you doing that.
Yeah, like even after the funeral, now I said to my friends who I would have said to, like before my dad passed, like that I didn't want to be there. I didn't want to go into the room, and I don't know how I'm going to do that. Like I said to them, I was like, "Isn't it fucking mad?" Like, and they're like, "But Julie, he was protecting you. He knew that you didn't want to go in."
And Julie, then can I ask you, because I know my friend Natalie, her grief just swallows her up like she's drowning. Like, what is grief like?
You know, I read a quote yesterday. It's like an inner scream inside you, but nobody can hear it, only you. You know, and you just want to just leave it out. It's like an inner scream inside you. I suppose that's the only way I could put it. It's horrible. Absolutely. It's an empty pit, and for the first, I'm still doing it. I'm constantly eating, and I thought I'd be the opposite. I thought I would be able to put nothing into me, you know, that I feel sick, but all I'm doing is eating. But what I feel like is I'm trying to fill an empty hole. Do you know? It's like an empty hole. So I'm eating, I'm drinking so much teas and coffee till it comes out my ears, and I don't even want it. It's just an empty hole I'm trying to fill, you know, and it's never ever going to be filled, but that's what I'm doing.
And what is the COVID funeral like, you know, because we lost a really good man in COVID, and I have a story that I want to tell people about him, like, you know, because I'm sure with the character that your dad was, that loads of people had stories about him or would like to share. Is a COVID funeral very difficult, or does it actually help?
Yeah, no, there's pros and cons to it, I suppose. Like, you know, at a normal funeral, people would come up to you and hug you and shake your hand or whatever. Like at my dad's funeral, I didn't get not one person shook my hand or put their arm on my shoulder or, you know, gave me a bit of a hug. You know, I just sat there. You know, I tried to support my mom. My mom was trying to support me. We were supporting Shaw. Like, obviously, we had some cousins and there was 10 of us, but not one person could shake my hand or, you know, are you all right, Julie? You know, or a bit of a kiss on the cheek, nothing for those 2 days. And we'd have the rosary and the removal then obviously the night before the funeral, but that was all very different as well. And what we do on before COVID is from the funeral home, we'd walk behind the coffin up to the church. We weren't allowed to do that. You know, my dad just went up to the church by himself. Like normally we'd accompany, like go with the coffin, like be there, but none of that was allowed. It's not like a proper closure, if that makes sense. Yeah. Like, I think we didn't get the proper closure that you would before COVID.
Yeah, the Cabra girls, they said that because Jamie's granddad died, and the other girls said like they couldn't even go up to her, like, you know what I mean? They couldn't even get up near her. And then even she said like she couldn't just take a break, and especially you with the twins, she couldn't even take a break to go to a cinema and get like a little bit of headspace for 20 minutes or an hour, like watching a movie with the girls. She couldn't even have that. So that must be very difficult.
It was so hard. It was so hard not to have one person being able to shake your hand at your own dad's funeral. You know, you're just sitting there. And then when we left the church, like there was a load of people outside, like listening and stuff new from that link. And I came out and I was holding Fionn and Aaron, and I was obviously crying walking behind my dad, and they all just had to stand there and watch me. You know, like not one of my friends could come up, which is hard. Not them as well. Like just to watch somebody cry, you know. It was very, very hard.
Take a minute. I say it all the time, I can only imagine, but I actually can't even imagine. And then how did you tell the twinnies? And you know the way kids are, and they say the most cutest things, but also the most heartbreaking things. Like, you know what I mean? How did you explain it to them? I didn't bring them to the removal because we did have an open coffin, and I didn't want them to see my dad like that. But I did bring them to the funeral. Again, I got trolled over that as well, that I shouldn't have. But anyways, I brought them to the funeral, and I just explained that Granda went up to heaven. He went up to the sky, and he's sitting on the cloud, and he's watching me from a cloud now, and he's very, very proud of me. And Erin kind of took it in their stroll. She was fine, but Fionn
he's soft. He's very, very soft. And he would speak about his granddad a lot. Like, as I said, Fiona's playing rugby on a Saturday morning, and every Saturday my dad used to come to Fiona's rugby training. He would just sit on the sidelines and watch Fiona. So now when we go, like a couple of weeks back now, the coach got the little rugby ball, like kicked it like really high up. And Fiona says, my granddad will catch that, because the ball was going towards the sky.
Jesus.
After goal. Yeah, and a couple of weeks back then as well, so Fiona hates getting his hair cut, but he used to remember my mom cut my dad's hair. My mom used to always just shave my dad's hair. So after COVID then, I brought Fiona to get to a barber's there a couple of weeks back. But Fionn thought, and my dad obviously sitting in the chair getting his hair cut, he remembered my dad getting his hair cut with this razor. So he was fine on it for a while, and was it 2 or 3 nights ago, I was batting him and I was washing his hair, and he was like, but that's my granddad's hair. How would he still remember, you know, stuff like that. Like Erin, not so much. She would often say like granddad's up in the sky, but Fionn he's heartbroken after him. And you see, I think as well it's a male thing, because obviously his dad left to go to Australia. You know, his dad's not in his life anymore. Then my dad kind of took on the role, and now my dad's gone, you know. And like they're only 3, like it was an awful lot for them. Like I do feel absolutely so sorry for them that they had to go through that in their small little 3 years.
And you know, someone said to me yesterday, I came back from Cork and my mum and her sister were here, and she had her grandbaby with her, and she said, well, I ring Grandad to come and get us. And the child lit up. They're great fathers, but they're better grandfathers, aren't they?
Yeah. Yeah, and my mom even says that, Jesus, Julie, I loved you and Sean obviously growing up, but there's no love like a love I have for Fiona and Erin Rose. It's a completely different love, you know. But yeah, and my dad, as I said, like I definitely think the twins kept my dad alive that bit longer, because he got a new lease of life, you know. They kept him on his toes as well.
And you've loads of memories for them. You've absolutely loads of memories. And it's mad because we didn't have that for our grandparents, do you know what I mean? But you have loads of memories for them.
So many. Like if my mom and dad told me they were like, obviously before COVID, if they were going to the moon, I'd say, oh, come on, twins, we're packing up, we're going to wherever they used to go, I'd go, you know. Or if I said to my mom, oh, myself and the twins are going to Fota for the day, all of a sudden my mom and dad are in the back seat. They're coming as well. We're very, very close family. And I know a lot of people that watch us always say the same. We're extremely close. So it was a big blow for Fiona and Erin as well.
And how are you today? Like, how are you today?
You know what? I keep busy. I don't stop. I don't sit down. The only time I'd really sit down is to watch Love Island, but I'm always on the go. I'm going nowhere, but I'm gone. I'm doing something. I'm making jobs for myself, because I don't want to sit down and have to think of, you know, everything. But I'm doing okay. I'm just keeping busy. The twins are keeping me busy. And to be honest, when I knew my dad was going to pass away, I remember saying to my mom or my friends, I'd be like, I won't be able to parent. I'm going to, like, someone's going to have to take my kids away, because how am I meant to get up in the morning just after burying my dad and put Weetabix in front of them? Like, no way will I be able to do it. I'm going to be in bed with the duvet over my head. And at the funeral, like the day of the funeral, I was getting up and I was giving them their Weetabix. The day after the funeral, I still had to be a mother. And it was the best thing. It was honestly the best thing for me was those 2 kids. They kept me going, and they kept my mom going, and they kept Sean going. Like they helped us through it like no other. Like only for them we would have crumbled, and because of them we're just keep going for them. And they're blessings. They
are, and they'll always have. And I'd say he's on his cloud now watching them, and he'll always watch them, and he'll always watch you as well. You said on your Instagram about Sean that you'd be lost without him. So it must have been very difficult for him, one being the only boy, losing his father figure, as you said about Fionn, but also you said that he was the one who organised everything and did everything for you. So tell me a little bit about Sean.
So again with Sean, I was like, he could go one way. I was like, what way will Sean take this? But he was brilliant, because he was so supportive to me and my mom and the twins. And like, my dad passed away at home, so then he had to be removed from our house down to the funeral home, and me and my mom stayed in the kitchen for that, because I was rotten to her. him leaving the house, but Sean was there. Sean stood with him the whole way, went down to the funeral home then, organised everything, got the prayer books, picked out the prayers, picked out who was going to read the little prayers. It absolutely, you name it now, Sean did it. And then my dad was actually buried with other family members, and like they obviously had to dig up the plot again, but the gravedigger didn't know where my dad was to go, so Sean went out and showed him where his own dad had to be buried the day of my dad's death, or maybe the day after or something. But to do that, I couldn't do that in a million years. And for Sean to be able to just drive out there and point out the plot to dig up, like, it was a hero in my eyes, because I wouldn't have been able to do that in a month of Sundays.
How old is he, Julie?
30.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah, he's so young, like, to do all that. In fairness to him, like, he's brilliant, and he's really good with the kids as well. He's absolutely brilliant.
It seems that you'd be all lost without each other.
Yeah. As I said, now we're very close in our family, and thank God we're still like that, But yeah, we're forever together. As I said, if my mom told me now she's going up to the moon in the morning, I'd go. I wouldn't even question it. I'd go too. I'm on the way. I'd have the bags packed, and we'd be just gone.
And then, Julie, can I ask you, are you lonely?
Yeah. Especially, as I said, during the days it's fine because I have the twins and they keep me going. But at night time that's then when it hits. Like it is very, very lonely because I'm here on my own, every night. But do you know what? I'm really getting fucking used to it now. And my Instagram as well is brilliant, that I could come on and just have the chats and the crack with my followers,
And they're so invested with you. The first 3 questions this week was about dating, so wasn't it?
Yeah. One after another. It's so funny because I'm after turning into a fridge, and I'm sort of COVID scared. But so I said I'd put myself back out there now, and because I suppose for the first, like, obviously I had so much going on the last 3 years, but now finally, like, things are kind of after mellowing out and stuff. So I was like, I might meet a man now. So I went on a date there about 2 or 3 weeks ago, and I told my Instagram before I went, and I'm not joking, I'm sure I got about 700 messages that day. How did you get on? Spill. I think they all want me to just be happy and, find my Prince Charming.
Because I find even some of the, messages I get of support come from the most wonderful people that I've never even met. And I'm sure you probably get that on the thousands.
Yeah, all the time. And it's like, some of my friends wouldn't have went through what I went through, but then I might get a follower that would text me and say, "Oh, Julie, I went through that last year and this is what happened to me." And you know what? You feel less alone, or like they text me and they're like, "Oh, my dad passed away there in January or February." And it's obviously horrible to read, but it's lovely to know that you're not alone. And I always say that back to them, like, well, you're not alone because I'm actually on the same journey now as you, we have each other, and like, as I said, I have friends whose parents would have passed away, but that could have been 5 or 6 years ago. So they're in a different stage now, I don't know what way, I'm still learning about this whole grief thing. But like, it's lovely when people message me and be like, well, it's not as horrible, obviously, to read, but I'm like, you have me, I have you. If you ever want to chat, just pick up the phone. I'm always, on the other side of my DMs and stuff.
Again, my friend said that, and you've just hit the nail on the head there. She said that it's terrible, but because she's like a grave goer. Jesus, Natalie is like, if she could be on that grave, if she could build her house on that grave, she would. She's like a total grave goer, and always was. But she said the big thing for her was she loved seeing a new grave going in or getting ready, because someone was about to experience what she was experiencing, and she could have a conversation with them about it. She said, like, obviously I don't love that they're after losing someone they love, but they feel the rawness of what I'm feeling.
Yeah, exactly. And that's exactly what I was saying there. It's like, I often message back like, "Oh, I'm so glad to hear," but then I have to send a voice note like, "Oh my God, I didn't mean it like that." No, but what I mean is that I'm not alone, you're not alone, because sometimes when you're going through such a horrible time in your life, I used to think I'm the only one in the world going through this, but really you're not. There's thousands and thousands of other people out there going through what you're going through, and you're not alone, and that's what, when I have my bad days, I'd often come on and cry, I'm like, I'm having a really bad day today, or a bad afternoon or whatever. But then a couple of hours later, I could be having the time of my life down the playground with the twins, So I show all of it, really.
And do you go down to the grave?
I used to be very good at the start. I'm not so good now. again, it'd be like when my dad was on his deathbed. I don't like going in there, but once I'm in there, I'm not too bad. I have to work myself up for it. So I still go, obviously, but I don't like it. And maybe once a week, but before I was going early every day. But I think that was bad for me, but everybody is different.
Yeah. Everyone will grieve in their own way, and no one should be judged for how they're grieving.
A lot of people don't go to graves, but I would now maybe once a week. But as I said, I was going every day. But you see, I could go in there actually kind of feeling fine, but I could come out then heartbroken. So I'm like, when I'm having a good day, I might as well just go with this good day and not visit the grave and just keep going with my good day, you know. But yeah, I'd still definitely visit him. But I talk to him here as well, you know. Like, you'd be always talking in your head and stuff and praying and stuff.
And he's always around, and he's always still heavily involved in everything that you can see that through your Instagram. And come here, would he have said to you, would you ever meet a fella?
Yeah, I'd say so. Yeah, but you see, then you'd be saying, God, nobody would ever fill your shoes. And then you see, I'd hate to meet a stranger, like, because you'd be like, but you never met my dad. I'd say all I'd go on about is my dad, like, but then he did this, and you'd want him to really know my dad, you know, that kind of stuff. And also another huge thing now for me is that, like, the wedding, like, this is all I'm thinking about now. Me too, I don't even have a fella here. How am I meant to get married to him? Like, he won't have the chance to ask my dad, or who would walk me up the aisle? Who would I pick? Meantime now, I don't even have a fella. Like, I'm running away with myself here. But should be thinking of all that as well, like. No,
but it is true. Like, you think of then as well, like the kids' communion. That's really tough. And Julie, tell me, have you, like, what's your throughout your whole life, or even like with the twinnies, probably, what's your biggest memory of your dad, and what's your dad's legacy?
Like, I would say he was just always up for anything. Like, we'd be often in here now doing TikToks and stuff, but my dad didn't have a clue about social media. He'd say, like, he hadn't a clue, but like anything to do with social media. And I'd be like, Dad, come on, we do a funny TikTok there now, and we'd all have to jump into the bat and, you know, pretend we're on a boat or in the bat. Your man be in the bat. He didn't clue what he was doing, but here he is rowing, like, you know, he just always up for anything. Like, you know, he's so funny, always up for the crack. And then he might be giving out doing it, like, I don't know what I'm doing here now. And then I put up my Instagram, and like, I get hundreds of comments, and he'd be at home with my dad, at home with my mom in bed. He'd be like, read out those comments there, Paula. What are they saying about me? That's what he said. What are they saying about me? Read them out again.
Isn't it
too weak for himself? And then he could be in Super Valley, where he'd go to the credit union every Friday. Me and my dad used to go to the credit union every Friday morning to pay off our loan, and not put money into our savings. We'd be paying off a couple of bob off our loan, and people used to say to him up there, I seen you on the Instagram last night. You used to be weak. And then he'd come out, they seen me on the intercom. He'd say to me, your one seen me on the intercom last night. I said, Dad, the Instagram. Being clueless, but he loved it.
I just think that everyone who has those memories, like, it's just like, what'll the next generation think of all this madness that we've been doing on Instagram? Do you know what I mean? And on TikTok.
Yeah, I know, but he just got involved in it, and he just he just went with the flow, and he was good, never in a bad mood either. Always just take every day, and off he went.
And Julie, how's your mum?
She's okay. Like that now we have the twins, and they're keeping her going. She'd come here maybe twice a week now for dinner. I had her yesterday. She was cutting my grass, and like that now she went back to work. So she likes to just, you know, keep busy and just keep going. But deep down, she's absolutely heartbroken. And I think with us, because my dad only passed away in February, and it's July now, it's starting to hit us now. Because as I said to my mom when he asked to have a dinner, I was like, but back in February, March, we didn't really miss Dad, because when you seen him two or 3 weeks ago, you know, but now it's the missing is coming into play, if that makes sense, you know. It's now you're starting to miss him, and then now it's kind of starting to hit home that this, you know, because at the start you're so busy, you're organising the funeral, you're doing X, Y, and Z, but now it's like, oh God, this is actually fucking real, you know. So yeah, it's hard. It's very, very hard. But again, we're just keeping busy, and the sunshine as well. It's lovely to the sunshine, you know. I'd say if it was lashing rain and dull and cloudy, and it would be horrible.
Yeah, because you have all this to come. And I think we say that, like, in the beginning, everyone is there for you. And then after the few months, people start to fall off, and they don't understand grief. So it's like, well, it's been 4 months. Is she not over that already?
Yeah, exactly. And that's when it actually gets worse. You think it'd be at the start, but at the start, you're so in shock. You're up to 90 planning everything. So the first couple of weeks, and plus it's a blur. And now it's starting to be like, okay, this is actually fucking real. And now I actually start to miss him, because back in the end of February, it's weird. It's a roller coaster of emotions.
And are the kids going to school then in September? Or when will they go to big school? Have you got all that planned for them?
So they're not this September for big school. They have their 1 year left for that preschool, the ECC year. So that's their last year now is this September, and then it'll be the following September. Then, please God, they'll be going into their big school.
And I know it's nothing when you know quite well that it's nothing, but isn't it mad then, and I don't mean to say like, oh, you'll be free, but like you'll have a little bit more freedom on your hands and stuff like that maybe you can start making a little life for yourself then,
Yeah, definitely. Because at the moment, like I'm sure a lot of mothers can relate, it's like, it's all about the kids, like your life is revolved around them and their activities and their camps, school camps and their crash, everything. So come school, now please God, everything will fall into place.
And then Julie, can I ask you then with the Instagram, will you stay on it as long as it suits you, or is there a point, and has there been a point over the time, especially with the trolling that you've taught, I'm going to give up, because the amount of people that we've lost on Instagram because they just can't handle it anymore?
Yeah, as I said, I really enjoy it, and it's my outlet in the evenings when I'm here on my own. So, like with the trolls, it is deep down, it is it's more annoying than anything. But no, I wouldn't leave them win, and I wouldn't come off because of them. I'll keep going we'll see what happens. But at the moment, I'm going nowhere.
You'll never let them beat you.
No, because as I said, I am enjoying it, it's my little outlet, but at the moment, no.
It's going to be great when everything can come back, because I think that we all had, with events and seeing people and stuff like that, and now all of a sudden then we've been in COVID and nothing has been happening. So I think once we can all start opening back up again, and maybe people will be happier, like with their lives, do you know what I mean?
And you see, that's it. And people are scared to post stuff. Like I at one stage in my life, I was going down to Dunn's doing the shop. I had to bring my kids because I had nobody to mind them. And people were like, why aren't you doing online shopping? I'm like, because I need the fucking shopping now. And online shopping was taking, some of the delivery dates was like 2 weeks time. Like it just went haywire, the online shopping. I was like, need to fucking go down and do my shopping, and people were judging for that, and judging if you were out there playing and didn't see you washing your hands. You're like, how, like, you only see little snippets. I washed my hands after I came, constantly being judged, especially around COVID. But no, I do think people were scared as well to post up stuff.
Yeah, I'd see, like, I know someone just posted there recently about, do you know what? You can't even say that I'm at putting on a bit of weight, because the people who have weight on them think that you're fat shaming them, and you're not. You're just saying you're not happy in yourself.
Yeah, you can't win. Like I've like that, and going back to the trolls, like my house is always up in a heap. Like, I have 2 young kids, of course it's up in a heap, and I've no problem showing all my Instagram followers, Christ, look at the mess I can't cope. So then they're on trolling me, be like, how's our house clean? It's an absolute disgrace. There's toys everywhere. But then I'd look at the likes of another, like this is Hinch now, for example. I've lovely, beautiful, clean house there sometimes. And sometimes people only show their clean houses, and that's absolutely fine as well. But then they're saying about her, how is our house so clean when she has 2 kids? I'm like, 2 minutes now. You just wrote yesterday that my house is up in the heat. Like, you can't win. No matter what you fucking do, they're going to talk about you,
Yeah.
So, and that when I read stuff like that, like trolls being like, our house is up in a heap. Like, why isn't our house clean? Why does it pick up the toys or whatever? But then you're reading the next day that they're giving out about a clean house. How is our house so clean? It just goes to show you can't fucking win. No matter what you do, they're going to talk about you,
Exactly. And can I ask you this? How is there a family out there who have no fucking contact with those 2 little babbies?
I know. And especially that they're in Ireland now, they're up the other side of the country. But and they have my mom actually reached out and said there's spare rooms down here if you ever want to come down, I'll never say no. And we just heard nothing. So, but I went through solicitors there recently because they don't have the same surname as me, and I'm worried, please God, the next couple of months we'll be able to go on holidays. If I went on the holidays with them, I'm a Haynes and they have two different surnames. Would people, like, will I be stopped? Do you know what's going on? Yeah. So I just rang his sister and I just wanted to find out where I stood. And he had a solicitor then out in Australia and stuff, and they were just chatting away, and his solicitor asked me if he was ever come home, would I allow the kids to see him? Like, they've no FaceTime, they don't talk at all for months and months. As much as I'd love to say fuck off, no. Like, it's me. I just, I wouldn't do it to my kids. And, when they're 16 years of age, they turn around to me and be like, it's all your fucking fault anyway, don't have a relationship. Yeah. So I said, look, if he ever comes home, no hassle, but I want to be there to supervise, Yeah. Especially for the first couple of meetings, because they didn't see him since they're probably just gone on 2 maybe. But I would never stop him from seeing them, as much as deep down you'd love to say fuck off, but yeah. I wouldn't. I wouldn't use the kids either as a weapon, but so that's him.
Because it's just really like with the thing, we say it all the time, like if you go up into a nightclub or up to a school, or you go to on a holiday and you're looking at someone going, that's the spit of me now, that person's the spit of me, because they're actually a cousin, or you know what I mean, and cousins do be the spit of each other sometimes, especially your two with their fairness as well and their hair, it's beyond, and obviously these people, you're like, a well-known person, you've got this platform, they're obviously looking, watching. Oh
yeah, definitely. And there's screenshots and stuff of the kids, and it's like, and then using that as the profile picture, and you're like, but fuck it, like you didn't ask me for a picture. Like, if you asked me for a picture, if you constantly ask me for pictures, of course I'd probably send them and stuff, but just to look to see how they're getting on instead of picking up the fucking phone. Yeah. It doesn't make sense at all. But look, I just don't get it. But as I said, it's not me. I have no hassle. But like, how am I meant to do like play dates and stuff when he's on the other side of the world? I should say.
Yeah, and as you said, you have all this documented and you have everything, because a 16-year-old, you were a 16-year-old yourself, that you'd say, well, that was on you, ma'am. You did that. You stopped all that. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And it's, yourself, it's not then till you have your own kids that you actually be like, oh my God, my mom was right. I should listen to my mom. But sure, when I was a little bitch when I was 15, 16 growing up, I hate my mom. Now we're the best of friends. So we used to kill my mom. My mom used to kill me, but that's the way every household went, Yeah. And I know the two of them are going to turn around to me probably in a couple of years and be like, oh, your fault. And like, it's not, because I actually reached out,
Yeah, and you tried, and that's it.
And I am, yeah. And again, as I said, if he ever came back from Australia, I would never say, no, you're not seeing the kids. But I did say to the solicitors, there's no hassle. If he ever comes back, he can have a little play date, but I want to be there just standing in the background, because in the end of the day, he's going to be a stranger. He didn't see them in 2 years, like.
And it is, like, as you say, it is so strange, because even my passport is in my maiden name. And when I was going through Dublin Airport, I went in and I had 2 kids with me. I think it was my first child, actually. It was on Amelia, and I handed him my passport, and he said to me, is there another Kelly travelling with her? And I was like, no. And and luckily enough, my mother-in-law was behind me. My mother and father, was my mother and my mum. It was actually going to Portugal, and it was the 2 kids with me. But he actually looked for someone with a sore, and I said, well, that's my mother-in-law, my mother, but they're my kids. And he was like, okay. But I thought, what the fuck?
And you'd hear stories like that all the time, and I would have nobody behind me with the same surname as my kids. So what would happen in my, So I had to go about it. It's like, what will happen if I do go on holidays and we have completely different surnames, and like somebody stops us? So there's this thing, I'm going to call that David or something, so I just have to get that. But like, I didn't know that at the time, but now I do, thank God. But it's very, very hard. Very hard. And even them starting school, like, I'd love them to have my surname starting school, because it's me with them all the time, it's the 3 of us. But it's very hard to change surnames. Very, very hard.
Fair play to you, I'd say. And I don't want to even say, but it's fucking heartbreaking that you do look at their names and be like, I was the one who I put their names on, his name on it, and then you fucking did this.
But you're in a fucking bubble, you know yourself. When kids come along, sure, you're like, oh, sure, we'll be up the island in the next couple of weeks. We're married. We're like, this is it. This is fairy tale. You're in a little bubble, and my God, things go fucking pear-shaped very, very quick. Like, you know, and that's just life. It's just life.
Did you ever get to grieve that relationship?
Not really, because I was straight into my dad then being so sick, and because I had absolutely fucking nothing at the time. I was on a couch. I had a tent out my back garden. My wardrobe was in the hall. I had so much going on in my brain then. Like, I don't know how my head didn't explode. I didn't. Like, it's only now that I'm actually after finding my feet. Look, I have a kind of long-term rental house here, you know, and the kids are happy, and, you know, that I'm actually able to look back now in those 3 years and be like, what the fuck did I just go through, you know?
Will you ever get counselling, do you think?
I started it. I actually did start it. I'd say it was about a month after my dad died, but I was going in there and he was like, how are you feeling? I'm a bit of a people pleaser and I'm a grand. And he was like, do you feel like this? And I felt like, even though I wasn't really feeling like what he was saying, but I didn't want to say no, because I didn't want him to think, gosh, he hasn't a fucking clue what I'm doing here, you know? So I was like, yeah, maybe I do. And then I remember he was like, close your eyes, he put on a bit of music, and he was like, go somewhere now peaceful. And I actually think I went to the beach, and I was sitting on the beach, and when he brought me back around, he's like, where are you? And I was like, well, I went to the beach, is that okay with you? You know, this is me. Like, we were doing the next time I'll go somewhere else if you don't want me to go to the beach. I'd say your man was like, what the fuck is wrong with your one? And at the time, my dad was only after passing, Jesus, only about a month, I'd say. And at that stage, I was still in shock. I actually didn't believe that my dad was gone. So I was grand, how are you? You know, that was my attitude. And how are you? You know? And so, yeah, now I think I would need a bit of counselling. But like back then, it was way too soon, because, again, I didn't believe my dad was gone back then. So now, maybe because it's kind of hitting me now, maybe I will.
Yeah, because I think when the freedom does hit you, that's where you're going to find yourself in need of something. And I actually can't wait for you know what I mean? I can't wait for you to have that, like, just peace of mind. And then you go, okay, now it's Julie's time. Now I'm Julie. Yeah. Julie. Yeah, and I definitely feel like it's starting to happen now. You know, everything now is just fingers crossed, nothing else will go fucking belly up with me. But now I think that I kind of after finding my feet, you know, but I'm in the depth of grief then, though, at the same time, you know. So I don't know what's gonna happen down the line. It's fucking mad. That's just life, though, isn't it? It is. And come here, what's the plans for the rest of the summer? Now you have the mobile home, haven't you? We do. We have a lovely mobile home down in Garrybow. My mum and dad actually bought a mobile home last year down there. So we'll go down there. It was very hard now going down, obviously, this summer without my dad for the first time. But we're loving it down there. The kids, it's great freedom for them, you know, and we have the beach then on our doorstep. It's beautiful. And it's only 40 minutes down the road from Cork City. So it's great that we could kind of come up and down for appointments, or if, like, one of them at rugby now, or Montfort's, Ernest and the Montforts, we could kind of come up and down, you know. I actually like going down to the mobile home. It's just so peaceful down there. And I'd sit there, and we have a lovely view of Garrybow Beach. And I just sit there with a cup of tea, and I could kind of turn on, I could switch off. So that's really, really lovely down there. And then when you're talking to your dad, what do you say to him? Everything. I'm chatting to him about fucking everything. I like to talk with kids, talk about life in general. Like, I'd be asking for the lotto numbers, like everything, anything, yeah, anything. Are you angry at all? You know, somebody who asked me that, it was my mum, actually. She asked, because apparently is there 7 stages, and one of them is anger, and I don't think I am yet. Now, again, next week I could be throwing plates off the wall, I could watch me, but I don't think I feel anger, because I know my dad lived a great life. He got to meet Fiona and Aaron Rose. He went on holidays nearly every year with my mom. He got to travel out to Australia to me. We went to Bali when we were out there. Went to Sydney for New Year's. He lived a whopper of a life, and as I said, like, he got to meet the twins. So I don't feel angry, because like that, I think he lived his life and he lived it to the best, you know.
whilst I get why people would feel angry when a younger person is taken away, you know, because that's absolutely horrific. But my dad lived to a great age. He loved life. He took and he really like made the best of every single day. So for that reason, I don't feel angry. I don't think, not yet. But then again, who knows, this could change. But for now, no.
And any advice would you give anyone going through a cancer diagnosis of a parent or a loved one or the loss? What advice would you give them?
Like going through it, I think for me, going through it was nearly worse than the loss, because towards the end, obviously, we lost him, and that was absolutely horrible to watch. And all the doctors, it's just absolutely rotten. But honestly, like, you're not alone. Like, there's so many, like, it's just that lonely feeling that comes over you, and you honestly do think you're the only person in the world going through it. But since I lost my dad and so many people reach out to me, like, I know now I'm not alone, and you're not alone either. And just take every day as it comes, and don't be trying to think too far ahead either. Just take every day as it comes.
And on that note, Julie, we leave it there. Thank you so much for sitting down with me. You're very kind to give me your time, your busy time. And I'm sure this will, as I said, I had so many requests to sit down with you. People were asking me all the time. And I'm delighted you have. But I think that this will help a lot of people, and also give some of those assholes a bit of insight to what you were actually going through with all of that, by putting that brave face on Instagram for us, your followers, and, you know, putting the brave face on. It's very brave. So I said it to somebody else, I wish this wasn't happening to you. I wish this wasn't happening to your mom and everything, but I know you all have each other, and I just wish you all the best of luck. And I just hope you keep going and you keep getting through it.
Thank you so much, and thanks so much for having me on. I was very nervous, but I really enjoyed it. So thank you so much for thinking of me.
Hi everyone, Rebecca here. I hope you enjoyed this week's podcast. As you know, your feedback